at the time I was living in Austin, Texas, and I had a good friend, and he was homeless. He lived under a bridge. And so one night before I left, I invited him to come to my apartment. Sometimes I would invite him to stay over for the night because it was so cold in Dallas, or in Austin that time. So, and I said to him, I'm leaving everything now. I'm getting ready, and I can only fit a little bit in my van. I'd gotten a van, I'd put the bed in the van, and I was all ready to drive off. And I said, I looked around the apartment and I said, so I still have some of this stuff. You can have anything you want. And he looked like this, like, really? And he's looking around. And, he's a guitarist, has been part of a band before. And so he loved guitars. And I had a really nice guitar. I played classical guitar. And so he saw that it had come from Spain. He looked at the guitar and he says, are you taking the guitar? And I said, it's yours. It's yours. So he was so delighted. And that's kind of like how I've been, just like I get something, I give it away because I can't hold on to it anyway. It's like I live out of my car. So what can I take? So that's kind of been and I remember also where was it? San Diego. I was going to hold a gathering, and it was at a healing store, a healing center. And this one guy, as I was driving towards the location, a guy called me up randomly and he says, hi, I'm on the bus and I don't know where your gathering is, but I want to come. And I said, don't you have maps? I'm thinking in my mind, like, doesn't he have? And I said, I really can't help you. I don't really know San Diego or how to guide you when you're going on a bus. Oh my gosh. Right? This is the first time I had even traveled through San Diego much at all. So I ended up kind of hanging up the phone thinking, who was that guy? And then I got there, and then while we were holding the gathering, there were maybe 8 people or something, 7, 8 people, 9 people, I don't know how many. But in walks this guy with these 2 huge suitcases while we were holding the gathering. And I looked at him and said, who's this? Who's this? And then they lead him, they guide him to put these 2 huge suitcases like in a corner somewhere. And then he sits down and he's listening to me really carefully. He's like, oh. And he has a question. So I said, go ahead, what's your question? So he asked me the spiritual question. I answer the question, and then I keep talking. And then after a while, oh. And so probably 3 or 4 different times he's asking questions because he's really paying attention. I really admired that. So at the end of the gathering, I'm overhearing him going from person to person, asking if he can get a ride home.
It was the guy on the bus.
Yeah, it was the guy on the bus. Can I get a ride home? And no one is able to do it. And I kind of overheard, and I said, I'd be happy to take you home. Where do you want to go? And he said, I'll show you. I have to show you how to do it, how to go. So I said, okay, well, let's pile in these 2 huge suitcases go into my van where I had all of my possessions, including my bed. And so we sort of stuff it into my van. And then he gets in the front seat and he's just describing his whole lifetime while we're driving back to his place. So we're driving here, we get off the freeway and we go suddenly it's like we get into this dark road. And it's getting darker and darker and the hills are starting to rise and the full moon is rising. And I'm thinking, where are we going? And then he said, stop here. And it's this dirt parking lot on the side of the street in the middle of endless hills. And he said, this is it. I said, okay. So I get out of the car and I said, and we take out these two huge heavy suitcases, and he starts walking towards this gate that passes into the wilderness. And I said, well, wait a minute, are you going up that hill? He said, yeah. Well, let me help you. I mean, these suitcases are big. So we're both pulling up these heavy suitcases up this winding road, and we're going up. It's like a really rocky dirt road, and we're going higher, and it is cold. So cold, I'm shivering. You'd be surprised that San Diego can get quite cold. So then we make the crest, over, and we reach towards the top and overlooking the distant city, and there are these two tents. And I said, oh, there's your home. He said, yeah. He said, one is for books and one is for where I lived. And I said, oh, okay. Is there anything else I can do for you? He says, no. And then I reached into my pocket, and all the donations that I had received from that gathering that night, I took them out of my pocket, and I handed the pile to him, and I said, here, you take this. You need this more than I do. And then he's like, oh, thank you so much. This is the best night. So nice to talk to you. And then I walked back down the hill, shivering, and he entered into his tent.